interview preparation, and salary negotiation to ensure that we close the gender pay gap. I help women, especially women of color, present themselves in executive roles as the ideal candidate, which guarantees that they receive a high compensation offer. Marla, over to you for introductions, and thrilled to be doing this workshop with you.
Oh my gosh. When I met Dorothy, I was so excited because I absolutely love your mission. I love what you help women do. This is so important. People think, oh, do we really need that anymore? Yes, we need you. We need this. So I'm so excited and so honored to be on this call with you today. And I'm a public speaking coach. I'm Marla Press. I'm the founder of Speakers on Fire Academy because I like to get people fired up about what they do. In order to communicate your passion, you have to have that passion and then fire up your audience so they're excited to work with you. So that's what I do. And I work a lot with energy and presence, stage presence, but it's more than that. You can have presence when you're one-on-one with somebody, whether you're on a stage or not. So this really applies to every type of communication.
That is exactly how I felt when I first met you, Marla, was your energy. And I was like, I need to know this person. I need to be friends with her because, and the work you do is so important. Communication is such an important skill that we must master because everything is about communication.
Yes, and they say, when people apply for a job, and this didn't used to be the case so much, it was more your credentials that was important. Now, what they're really looking for is someone who is a good communicator. It's the most important skill.
Yep. Yep. It's whether you want to influence higher ups or peers, whether you want to get promotions, high visibility projects, even if you're an entrepreneur, how do you get clients and how do you retain those clients and keep them engaged? So everything is about communication. So I'm so glad we connected and met and so glad we're doing this workshop. So what are we going to talk about today?
Well, some of the most important things, as I mentioned, is energy and presence. And that's where I always start with communication because communication is only 10% the words you say. And most speakers, they worry way too much about exactly what they're going to say. They memorize their speech. And whether you're just going to talk to your boss or coworkers or your team, the words are important. Don't get me wrong, but it's 70% your energy. It's your body language, your facial expression, and it's your confidence. And it's this thing we can't really describe well in words, but it's your energy. We're all affected by everyone else's energy. So, you meet somebody and you form this opinion and you get this feeling from them more based on their energy than what they're saying or how they look. And you don't always know why you feel that way, but it's this subconscious communication. And a lot of us are more aware of it than others, but it's good to become aware of it and aware of your own energy so that you know how you're coming across to people.
Hmm. Well, that just reminded me, and I'm going to completely go off script here, but that's okay. It's a Saturday morning. We're spending time with our friends. So there is that quote, right? People remember how you make them feel versus, or that is it Maya Angelou who said that.
It's
So I think part
Maya
of it is
Angelou,
about,
yes.
yeah, the energy, I think relates to that, like how you communicate with somebody. If you show energy and passion, then they have certain feelings, and if you are kind of low key and like not super interested, then they gather something from that as well.
Yes, yes. I love that quote. People will not remember how what you said or what you did as much as they're going to remember how you made them feel. And
Yes.
that's so true. And as a speaker, it's really important to realize that. And energy, there's a lot of confusion about what the heck energy is. And it's not necessarily just high energy versus low energy, although you don't want to be too low energy because that's just people think you're not engaged and you don't care. But you don't have to be super high energy. What I tell people is you want to have magnetic energy. You want to have authentic energy. And that's something that is again hard to describe in words what that is. I take people through exercises so they experience it and really get what that means. But that's the kind of energy that is the most engaging with communication. And it's really
Mhm.
getting out of this head energy and into your full body energy. And that, again, is hard to describe in words, but it's speaking not just from the heart, but from the heart and from the gut and from your body versus this intellectual, cluttered mind we all have.
Mm-hmm. A part of it, and this is what I train in my coaching program, is the mirroring technique, right? So salespeople use this a lot, and they are very successful. Most successful people are able to get the outcome that they're trying to achieve through mirroring, which is you match the level of energy with your audience to a certain degree. If they are high energy, then you speak with high energy. If they're more quiet and confident and calm, you match that. Then you mirror some of the words that they're using, so you're resonating with them. So that in my curriculum we talk a lot about mirroring. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that and how that relates to the energy work that you do.
Yeah, I have to say I don't focus a lot on the mirroring concept, but I totally agree with it. This is something, so I've studied neurolinguistic programming, and that's a real tactic in neurolinguistic programming. A lot of people know it as NLP, is mirroring. And then what they suggest is you mirror it so that you build rapport,
Yes.
because people aren't going to listen to you until you have that rapport, right? But then you can guide them to a little bit higher level. So you can't go from 0 to 60 right away, but you mirror, you find what level they're at, and then you can take them higher by exemplifying that yourself. So it's a great, great thing to do, especially if you're one-on-one or in a small group. That's really, really helpful. And the language, I totally agree with that. Matching the language they use. And to go into just a slight bit more detail on that, again, with NLP, there's the people tend to be either visual, auditory, or kinesthetic. There's actually 3 places that people focus. And if you match the type of language, it doesn't have to be the exact words they're using, but if they're using more auditory words, use more auditory words. If they're using more visual words, use more visual and kinesthetic and so on. So I totally agree with that. It's really helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That is actually a great segue to our other topic today that we wanted to share was understanding your audience. Because, we in part of mirroring, part of building rapport, like you said, is really understanding really quickly what this person is going to be most receptive to, what type of language, what type of data would they most be amenable to. And if you don't mind, Marla, I can talk about the disc personality and then would ask you to layer in and add kind of your flavor to it.
Absolutely. Yes. Let's hear about
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. So, there's of course many different ways to understand your audience. The one quick and easy, quick and dirty when you need it in the prime time is the DISC personality test or the DISC personality type. So what this does is divides your audience into 4 categories. And again, it's easy and it's very general, but then it works. So D stands for dominant, I stands for influential, S stands for steady, and C stands for conscientious. And all of these are words basically to say what is the type of personality and what kind of information resonates best with them. And the way I use it is I think of a celebrity for each of these types. Because for
Oh,
me, then it's easy to correlate. Okay, is this person a Gordon Ramsay? A Gordon
I
Ramsay would
love
be
that.
a dominant person. Yeah, exactly. And so you're like, is this a Gordon Ramsay? The next one is influential, and I think of Ellen DeGeneres as influential. She's got that charisma. She wants to build relationships. She's all about like understanding what happened today, how is your family, that kind of stuff. So if a person comes across with that Ellen type of energy, then that person is the influential type. Steady would be someone like Tom Hanks. He's be long-term relationships, building trust. Oh, that's the persona Tom Hanks presents. I don't know what he's like, in real life, but that's who I think about. And then conscientious would be somebody like, I would say Bill Gates, who is like expertise, competence, accuracy. And so the point of all of this exercise is when you talk to these people, whether it's a client or a future boss, you use the type of examples that would resonate. So with a Gordon Ramsay type, you would talk about results and achievement and action. For an Ellen type, you would talk about culture and relationships. For a Tom Hanks type, you would again talk about building long-term culture. And with a Bill Gates type, you would talk about numbers, again, competency, how good you are at what you do. And that gives you the sort of the playbook on how to interact with these individuals. What do you think, Marla?
Yeah, it's interesting. And I've done the DISC test when I've worked in small companies. I've not worked in corporate, but I love that you and I are both having this conversation at the same time, because, you have a little bit more of a corporate background and I have a little bit more of an entrepreneurial background. And so things can be a little different in those different environments. And also it's a little different when you're talking to your team or you're talking to an individual at work versus you're on a stage talking to an audience, or you're on a Zoom call talking
Yes.
to a networking group, for example. So it sort of depends. And I think that finding some way to figure out how to have that rapport with your audience is extremely important. So the DISC is one way. There's many ways.
Yes.
And, there's many personality tests. There's the Enneagram. There's all kinds of different ways of sort of putting people in categories, which that sounds bad, of of looking at the differences and the similarities that people have and how you can best communicate with them. When you're on a stage, you may not know your audience at all. You may not be able to figure those kinds of things out. So when you're on a stage, what I tell people, you want to know your audience. What you want to know the most about your audience is, what is their biggest pain point? What is their biggest problem or challenge that they're dealing with that you can help solve? And then really address that and speak to that, because that is what they want to know, is how you can help them. And so it depends on, the situation as to how you approach the audience. But the big message, no matter what the environment is, you need to know your audience.
Yes,
Yes.
that is very true. And then, like you said, to make a point, to make the one point, right? Be direct about it, and make it extremely clear, and make it multiple times, possibly throughout your speech, if you're giving it from a stage or whether you're just having a Zoom call.
Yeah. So you want to know what their main pain point is. What's the first problem they want to solve? And it may not be what you think they should solve, but it's knowing, what do they really want? And then speaking to that. And you might have 3 education points, or you might have 1, depending on how long you get to speak with them. But it's really important to just know, what is it that they want and what can you give them? Because too many speakers go out there and they have this great material, and they just want to give the material and put out the material. And that doesn't go over very well. So think about, what is it that your audience wants and needs, and then give them that. And then once they work with you, or once they agree to do something, whatever that action is, then you can expand and talk about all these other things that you do.
Mm-hmm. I like that a lot. And I think I'm very guilty of that too, because I have so much going on in my head. There's a lot of clutter. So I have to be disciplined about understanding the point that the audience wants, or the problem that they're trying to solve, and then giving it in bite-sized pieces, so it's not a lot. Like they can digest it.
Yeah. Like we were talking about earlier with it's how you make them feel. So you want to make them really feel their pain, really feel it, so they can identify, oh yes, I am feeling that. And then you come up with 1 to 3 solutions that they can believe are solutions that are going to help them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that could be a one-to-one conversation with somebody. It doesn't have to be, again, on a stage. It could be one-to-one. Yeah. Which leads me to, I don't normally talk about this, because I normally talk about speaking from a stage or promoting yourself to potential clients. But this is so important. And since we're talking about communication in general, I wanted to talk about what I call presence in conversation. And I teach this in my Art of Presence classes, which I'm now including in my speaker training. But there's ways that our ego gets into conversations that cut off the communication. And we're all guilty of this. So for everyone listening out there, think about what it is that applies to you the most, because we all have at least a couple of these that are happening all the time. None of us are perfect, but here's some of what gets in the way. You're having a conversation with somebody and you want to be liked. And this could even be with you being on a stage. You want to be liked. So you kind of don't say exactly what you were going to say, or you don't do exactly what you were going to because you're afraid, it might be too controversial. So then your communication doesn't feel as authentic. So that's one, wanting to be liked. Another way our ego gets in there big time is wanting to be right. And this happens, in the workplace a lot. It happens with your spouse. It happens with your friends. It happens on the stage, wanting to be right. And so, we have a real strong ego need to want to be right. And so we'll say things that maybe we wouldn't have said because, it goes along, it's congruent with us being right. Another one is we want to look competent. And you think, well, that's a good thing, right? Of course we want to look competent. Yeah, but maybe you're shutting down some of the communication coming from the other person because you're too worried about being competent, and that's your goal, and it gets in the way. In other words, wanting to fix the problem. A lot of us can relate to this one. We want to fix the problem. We don't listen fully because we want to fix the problem. And yet, none of these are bad in themselves. Sometimes fixing the problem is people are going to be grateful if you help them solve a problem. But is that getting in the way of you really listening and understanding the problem because you're jumping to wanting to fix it? Needing to be of value, needing to be of service. And then another big one is silence. And I know, Dorothy, you and I were going to talk about this. People are afraid of silence, and silence is powerful. And so we can talk about that in a second, about what that means when you're giving a speech. But in conversation, people are so worried about having a silence that they just want to fill it immediately. And then sometimes when there's a silence, gives the other person space to process what you're saying and to process what they are saying. And it's so valuable to have that silence and that pause. So those are just some of the things that get in the way of us having good communication when we're talking one-on-one with somebody.
I like that. I should have written all the lists down, but we recorded it so people can catch it later, and I can write it down later. I have a question. So if you are not thinking about being liked, being competent, solving a problem, what should you keep in mind? Should you go back to what the problem the audience has and think about how you're gonna, do you go at it from a service mindset so you are not in the ego mindset?
Yeah, so this is more applicable when you're either one-on-one or in a small group, really having more of an intimate conversation than when you're on a stage and there's not so much of a two-way conversation. So like I said, a lot of these things, they're not bad in themselves, but they are obstacles for truly getting to understand the other person. So when you're worried about being liked, then you're focusing on yourself. When you're trying to be competent, when you're trying to fix the problem, you're not. So what you want to do instead is have a very open, receptive mind. So you stay in curiosity mode, where you're just, I want to know more from this person. I want to know more. I want to understand this person. I want to give them space to fully express themselves. And we don't do that enough. We're too putting ourselves in there instead of just really, really wanting to have this deep understanding of the other person. And it makes such a difference in how you're received and how the communication goes.
Yeah. Yeah, I 100% agree. And it very much aligns with the curriculum that I teach, which when you are negotiating your salary, it's very powerful to use that silent space, and maintaining that perspective of curiosity, because that's going to gain you a lot more versus you're trying to show that you are being, you're competent, or show that, like, people do a lot of that and then they lose out because it's almost the opposite effect, of what they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, because it's almost like a salesy thing. So you're almost trying to push your competency or push being right or push your confidence even on the other person versus just being confident, being competent, and communicating from there. And it's a slight shift in a way, but it's a very powerful shift.
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're not open enough, and we don't listen enough to other people. We're too busy putting ourselves in there. What are we going to say next? How are we going to react? What are we going to do? How do we fix this? Oh, do they like me? Am I doing it right? All those, this mind clutter that comes in.
Yeah.
And so that's why I really help people to get out of their mind clutter and really be in the essence of who they are, which, that helps a lot when you're on a stage. It also helps one-to-one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a trick to help on some of the mind clutter, like clearing up some of the mind clutter. And I have this trick because I suffer from it, because I feel like I need to talk and fill the gap, right? So here's the trick. So anytime you want to make a point and then stop talking, here's how you do it. And here's how I do it, and it works for me. So you make a point. So you could say, I believe you should learn communication skills. That's your point. Then you provide 2 or 3, no more than that, either examples or supporting statements. You say, because communication skills allows you to influence decisions and direction. It allows you to competently provide your services to your future clients. And then go back to your point. This is why I believe we should invest time and resources in mastering this important skill. And then stop talking.
Yeah, absolutely. That stop talking is so hard for us because people over explain things, and that just is really from a lack of confidence about what your message is. You have to give people time and space for it to land and for them to process it. And, even if someone's super intelligent, super quick thinking, we all need that space to process because we are so bombarded with information being thrown at us from every direction. That's just in the age we're living in. And so it helps so much to have that space. And the pauses when you're speaking are so important. Absolutely. I'm going to see, because I know there's some people watching out there. I'm just going to see if I can click on the chats here. And I'm going to just put a couple of those on the screen and thank Harumi for being here. Hi, Harumi. So nice to see you. Yes.
And Vanessa. Hi, Vanessa. Great to see you. I haven't talked in forever. Glad you're here.
Yes. And it's such a nuisance. Oh, a nuance, not a nuisance. Oh my gosh. Nice to see you, Vanessa. Nice to meet you. Yeah. So for everybody listening out there, we'd love to, if you have questions, put them in the chat and we will try and answer the questions. So here's another one. We love this engagement. Pausing is hard. Yes. Yes. It just doesn't natural. And we feel like we just have this urge to fill that space, but it's powerful to pause. So thanks for acknowledging that. That is awesome. Yes, thanks for participating. Love to see that. And if you're watching the replay, which I know a lot of you will have to watch the replay, then put comments in there, and we will also respond to those afterwards. Comments, questions, we'd love to hear from you. So just wanted to acknowledge the people that are watching, and back to the programming already in progress.
We have a program, or are we making this up? I think we're making this up.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So we talked about presence and energy a little bit, and Dorothy just gave us a great way to, get out of your cluttered mind. for me, I do it energetically and I teach it energetically. So it's not a verbal thing. It's, how do you move your energy out of your head and move it down into your body? And again, it's real hard to explain, but the communication is different. When people talk from up in their head, their voice is a little higher. It feels more airy and flighty. It's usually not that emotional. It's not connecting. And then when you get down into this deeper space, and I said, I go through the heart into the gut. And when you come from that place, the communication just automatically slows down. It becomes more magnetic, it feels more authentic, and it often becomes more about the other person. I do this exercise with people where I say, okay, give me your 1-minute marketing message, and they'll, spout that off. And then I have them get into this new place inside their body and say it again. And it changes dramatically so much. And it becomes more about their audience and what they want and what they really want to see happen in the world and their passion, as opposed to, I'm Marla Press. I'm the founder of Speakers on Fire Academy, and this is what I do. And, because that's the head bubble. That's just not nearly as connecting. So, we want to connect. And Harumi is also saying, when someone keeps talking, but I want to say something, what is the best way to communicate without interrupting?
That's
Well,
a
that's
great
a
question.
great question, because some people don't give us much space, right? They just keep talking and talking and talking. And so you can signal them non-verbally. I mean, interjecting verbally, sometimes you have to almost cut somebody off, but, do it gently. But if it seems like they really are just steamrolling over you, then you can energetically do something with your facial expression that looks like you're confused, or you're a little puzzled, or you really want to say. They will feel from you when something's just waiting to come out of you. And some people still won't even pick up on that, but most people will pick up on that you really want to say something. So a lot of times it's a nonverbal cue, but sometimes you do have to, say something. But instead of interjecting, but this is what I think, ask them a question. Ask them a question about what they're saying, because questions are really validating. That makes the other people feel like you care about them, you're interested in them, you're engaging with them. And then it doesn't feel as abrupt as if you're just giving your opinion right away. So I hope that helps, Harumi. That was a great question, because that comes up a lot for people. Absolutely.
Yeah, it does. And you can ask the question and then say, and then even though what you are saying may not be absolutely relevant to what the point that the other person made, if you add an and then talk about what you want to talk about, it allows the transition to happen. And I use that quite a bit in some of these boardroom type discussions.
That is a great tip. Absolutely. Yes. Sometimes you have to be assertive.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes a lot, and sometimes you have to almost, if you want to complete a thought and somebody keeps interrupting you, the opposite of what Harumi is asking for, then you have to have some tips and tricks in your tool bag to handle that. One thing I use is, if somebody keeps interrupting while I'm trying to make a point, that's a great point. Let me finish and I'll get to you. And then you just keep going with what you say, what you were planning to, and that allows that the interrupter to kind of let you finish.
Yeah. And that, this is so important in all our communication that we don't do enough. So it's a great point, Dorothy, is validate the other person. Don't make them wrong. Validate them. And you don't have to agree with them. It's not about agreement. It's about validating where they are. So by saying, that's a great point, and I'll get to that later. Or, so you're validating them first before you just say, well, I'm going to take questions later. So you start with that, and they feel like they're not being heard. So
Yeah.
people want to be heard, but there's very tactical ways of doing that and still moving the conversation forward. So I love that. Yeah, we're getting some great conversation here. I love
I
it.
like that. I like the engagement. That's fun. So
Yeah.
we let's talk about body language, Marla. You alluded to it a little bit, about projecting confidence and body language to your advantage. So, what are some tips, or what are some things you work on with your clients?
Yeah, it's interesting because again, it depends on whether you're in a Zoom room in this little square, it's kind of a rectangle now, or whether you're on a stage or you're just talking one to one. So, there's the things that we all know about with, closed body language, or, whether you're leaning back or you're leaning forward, those kinds of basic things. But what I find when people are on a stage, and this is an in-person stage, is a lot of people are pacers, and that just drives the audience crazy. So they say, well, I don't want to just, stand behind a podium or not move. So how do you find that balance between movement and not moving too much? And what I tell people is your body language should be congruent with your words and your message. So it's used to emphasize your message. So whether you're in a Zoom room and you're just, using your hands to emphasize something, you don't want to just constantly be doing this. Some people have the same, because some people are very animated with their hands, but it seems like it's all the same. But you want to, emphasize what you're saying. So if you're talking about a point, you might have a finger up, you might, say point number 2, when I say, this has to change, sometimes I'll even go like this, but just something that emphasizes it. If you're on a stage, you walk and say a point, and then for the next point, you move to the next part of the stage. Or if I'm talking about moving forward and having the audience move forward with something, I'll take a step forward as I'm talking about moving forward. So it's congruency that, number one, helps people to trust you. And this can be subconscious, but it makes a difference in whether people trust you. That congruency, they at least subconsciously pick up on. And the other thing is people get kind of shifty, because they're a little nervous, and if they're on stage, they shift back and forth, or even in a Zoom room, kind of shift their weight a little bit or shift their eyes a lot. So shiftiness makes people not trust you too. So you want to be really focused, and and you want to exude the confidence that you have. You have to, for someone to have confidence in you, you have to feel the confidence yourself. And there's ways of doing that I work with people on. It's not something, you can just say, okay, be confident
Be
now.
confident. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, you be confident and you be confident. It's a feeling that, you have to experience. And that's what I help people do also, is how do you come from such a place that you are rock solid, you are confident. And then when you're on a Zoom room, it's, anything online, your facial expressions are critical because people don't see your whole body. So they're really focused on your face. And innately, as babies across all cultures, we're very keyed in on people's facial expressions. That's inborn, instinctual. And so your facial expressions need to be congruent. I've had people I've had people that talk about being excited, and they don't look excited at all. They're just saying, oh, I'm really excited today. You are not. You're not. And so that congruency again. But are people, people that have these inspirational stories about how they survived trauma or cancer or, some very serious things. At that point, you need to show in your face the anguish so that people feel it, they get it, and not just talk about it matter of factly. People want to see a little anger or a little frustration in your face when you talk about these things. And or a woman that I helped the other day, that was a client that her husband had a stroke and was in really had some it was so hard on her. And when she talked about it, you just didn't get that in her face. So, and sometimes people are afraid to show emotion because they think they're going to get stuck in there. So if something is too raw, you might not it might not be the time for you to talk about that story. But what I help people do is realize, even though you're feeling the emotion, realize you're feeling this emotion and exuding it to help your audience, not because you want to relive the story, but because you want to give permission to your audience to feel their own pain and trauma and challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's so important to show this emotion so that they have permission to feel their own. And it's got to come from your words and your facial expressions.
Yeah.
There's a lot more to it. There's a lot to
There
body
is, absolutely. Yeah. And
I
we both,
talk about feminine versus masculine body. I talk about all kinds of stuff, but that's just, just the beginner is, but it's a great question. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, you and I did this exercise, and of course, I was very hesitant about doing a vulnerability exercise. But the good news is that I sounded more effective. That's number one. And number two, I didn't stay stuck in that rawness of that emotion. For the audience, we were talking about, my first experience in America, being alone, feeling isolated, being away from my family. That was the exercise that Marla and I did together. And she asked me to do it with vulnerability. And it was really hard at first. And I'm sharing a lot of our details of our work together. It was hard.
Yeah.
It was hard.
It is. It is hard. It's much easier for us to talk from this intellectual mind and give details as opposed to give emotions about it. Yeah.
Yeah. The good news, though, was I felt better afterwards. First of all, I not only wasn't stuck there, I also started thinking, being vulnerable, like Brene Brown says, is actually, is two-sided. You are vulnerable, so it hurts a little bit, but it also makes you free. You feel better. So it's a good thing.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, when you don't feel something, you're kind of resisting it. You're in resistance mode, and that doesn't feel good. And again, a lot of that's subconscious, but it's there and it affects your speaking, it affects your communication, it affects how you feel. And the other thing is, a lot of us are afraid to tell our personal stories in an emotional way because we're afraid we'll get stuck, like you said. But most of the time you don't. And especially if you're coming from the intention of saying these things to help someone else instead of to relive it, it makes a big difference. So yes, thank you for being vulnerable. And I'm so glad that was helpful for you.
Yeah. So that's the kind of going back to what you were saying before. It's not about you. Like, take the ego out, and then make it about them. It allows you to be confident almost. It allows you to get out of your own way, because now you're not trying to be likable. You're trying to be of service to your audience.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
Let's see. What other questions are we getting here? Okay. All right.
I'm not sure if you can see some things that I can't. So that's why I was hesitating, because it's possible you see some things I don't.
Yeah, no, I think we answered all of the ones that were questions.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. So we talked about a lot of things: energy, presence, how to keep your ego out of the conversation, body language, how to approach someone when they seem to be steamrolling over you and talking too much. And that, in general, less is more when you talk. We didn't expound on that concept too much, but, we talked a little bit about it, over explaining things. We think that people will understand us better if we keep explaining it, but it makes them confused. Even intelligent people that have good intentions, it's confusing when you over explain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's true about negotiations, 100%. So we talked about the power of silence a little bit, and the over explaining bit. This is what happens. So when you are early in your journey of being a negotiator, you ask for something and the other person says, okay, let's talk about, X, Y, and Z next. You should assume that that's a yes. Instead of assuming that's a yes, people tend to keep explaining. And then they work themselves out of what they were about to receive because they talk so much.
That's so true. And that's true with, when you're an entrepreneur and you're talking to a potential client, because you're in your ego and you're concerned so much about, getting them to say a definite yes, that you're not picking up on the cues that they're giving you, and going with those cues, because sometimes that's what we get. We don't always get the directness, and just being really aware, and to be out of your cluttered mind and in this more present place, you're going to be able to pick up more cues from the other person. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why if you're new to something, the power of silence allows you to listen for those cues, stay in this curiosity zone. So, if nothing else, just letting the other person speak 70% of the time will allow you to pick up those cues.
Oh, I love that. Yes. Allowing the other person to speak 70%, not 50%. Like a lot of people think, oh, it's 50-50. Communication is 50-50. But really, if you want to be super effective and have someone else feel validated so that they want to know what else you have to say, you want to listen more than you speak. Absolutely. Yes, that's a great point. We didn't bring that one up yet. That's an amazing statistic, because I know a lot of people think, yeah, 50-50. Yeah, when you're talking to her, that, yeah, it's all 50-50. No, you have 100% of the accountability, and you want to speak less than you listen. So, yeah, those are really important.
Yeah.
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 So, Dorothy, can you tell us a little bit about what you do have to offer and what's coming up for you, and how people can get a hold of
Yes.
you?
Absolutely. So as I said in my introduction, I work a lot with executive women, and especially women of, BIPOC women in the executive world. However, there are a few gentlemen, so we're not exclusive here. We welcome all, but that's my primary focus, on how to negotiate, how to interview like a Fortune 500 CEO. So you are seen as the ideal candidate who's going to solve the company's problems. So I help you by getting out of your way in the way you speak, the way you interview, the way you negotiate for anything around your compensation, salary, perks, benefits. And my program is a 3-month coaching program where I give you modules and homeworks and one-on-one time. So if you are somebody who has reached a glass ceiling of sorts and are looking for your next role, and you want to do it right this time, and you want to have all of the tools in your toolkit, reach out. And Marla, can we put my link somewhere? Oh, there we go. Thank you.
Yeah,
So
it's been scrolling.
this is awesome.
It's
Yeah.
moving across the screen.
Please feel free to book a discovery call. This is a complimentary 30 minutes of my time to give you some golden nuggets, as well as to determine if there is a way I can help you achieve your goals. And it's 30 minutes, it's complimentary, and it's my gift to you. So please feel free to book that time.
That's a wonderful gift. I hope all of you take advantage of that, because Dorothy is the advocate that you want. And we all need an advocate. It's kind of, whether you're in a job looking to get to a higher level, whether you're looking for a new job, it's a little scary. It creates a little anxiety, and we all need some help with that. And Dorothy is a master at negotiation, so she can really help you. So I encourage you to meet with her, just to have a conversation and see what else she has to offer too. So I highly recommend Dorothy. Yes.
Thank you, Marla.
You're so welcome. And now I'm going to put my link also, because I also would love to connect with all of you. And let's put that one up there. I have a couple, but this one here is kind of interesting because, so I mostly work with entrepreneurs. I have worked with doctors and realtors and executives, because communication skills are mostly the same in any situation. Again, with your spouse or your kids, same principles of, how you listen and how you are more present in the conversation, and how you address other people's needs and wants, and how you don't over explain, all those things. But I mostly work with entrepreneurs who want to promote their business. And I'm passionate about this because in the past few years, the coaching business has increased about 100%. It's so much noise out there online, especially, but even in person, there's so many people that are out there speaking in networking groups. It's inundated with people trying to get their messages across. And most people don't do a good job with getting someone excited about what they do and being clear. Clarity is so important. Being clear about what you do and then having the right energy. So I help people do two things. Besides, I work on your speech and your compelling story and your pitch and all those things. The two biggest things that people need to know is how to be exciting or entertaining or bring passion and emotion, and then how to connect to the audience. Because those aren't always, you can't always do them both at the exact same time, but you need both elements every time you speak, even if it's a 1-minute speech in a networking group. You have to bring both those elements, and that's not easy to do. And I have a lot of ways of making people wow the room and really magnetically attract more clients. And this is so helpful. So my free gift today is the Hot or Not eval. And what you can do there is bring any part of your marketing message, your speech, your story, anything you want, and we will work on it so that you will walk away in less than an hour. You will walk away with a 1-minute speech marketing message that you can use anywhere, whether you're on a stage or whether you're just at a party or in the grocery store, wherever you are, that you are going to magnetically draw people in from this. So we can also work on some energy pieces, do some exercises, whatever you want is what I'm about giving in this complimentary session with me. So you can go to that bit.ly Hot or Not eval, and I would love to meet with you and get to know you better.
And yeah, you should absolutely make use of this time, because I did, and I love the time with Marla, and she's very generous and very knowledgeable. I think there's plenty of people out there who are talking about improving your communication, improving your speech, but I haven't met anyone like Marla. She really gets deep into your brain and says, pull this out. Yeah. Use this little bit that's in your brain that's going to work magic. So if you want magic, get a hold of Marla.
Oh, thank you so much, Dorothy. I appreciate that. It does feel like magic, these exercises, because they transform people so quickly. And I just love it. I'm so passionate about it. Well, this has been a great conversation. I hope that a lot of people watch the replay and make some comments. Watch it over again if you're watching right now. And there's a lot to pick out of here and how to up your communication game. So thanks so much, Dorothy. I appreciate you so much.
You too, Marla. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And please put comments. Those of you who are listening in the replay, we would love to engage and give you more tips if needed.
All right. Wonderful. We look forward to seeing all of you. And till next time.